Good morning, everybody. You made it through the weekend. Congratulations. You deserve extra credits. And make sure you get a gold star this week for making it to Monday morning, 6 o'clock. Excellent, excellent, excellent work, Smithies. All right. I had like a little scratch in my throat there. I hope it's not the Rona, because, of course, then, you know, it's 100% leads to death, obviously, every time, right?
It's definitely COVID, yeah. It's definitely COVID.
You think
I
it's
don't need
definitely
any more evidence. Yeah, you've definitely got COVID. You're showing the 6 symptoms of COVID, yeah.
And what?
You know how in those dickhead magazines in the 90s and noughties, I don't know if they still have it, where they'd go, the 6 signs of aging, the 7 steps to beauty. I think you're showing the 6 signs of coronavirus.
You see, you made that up just like so many people do. And here I am. Look, there's Leigh-Ann Mole too. So we got Mbulelo and Leigh-Ann and Gareth and you. That's all that we need. In the studio, running things there for us too, Simpiwe in the background. And we will be joined later on by some of the regulars, including Dr Hanan Bushkin. We're also going to have Collectomania later on, which is always a good thing on a Monday. So plenty to talk about. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. How are you, Leigh-Ann Mole? Hello. No, we can't hear you. You're muted on the screen there.
Yeah.
Oh, there you
Like, how old of me? I said I'm a little bit late this morning, so I was hoping the only thing that drove me to be a little earlier than later was Mbulelo's respect.
Yes, I know, because he does not respect people, as we discovered with him and Simpiwe the other day. You know, he has no respect.
Is not excusable.
It almost makes me feel bad. Almost makes me feel bad.
I thought you'd at least say, Mbulelo, no, it's fine, Leigh-Ann, we understand, but yeah, don't know what I was looking for.
You can't compromise on principles. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just means I'm not willing to compromise on principles. You know?
Graham says, it's nice to see that Simpiwe is on time for work. 3Ann, your camera is crap.
Is it? Or is it just that I don't have makeup on?
No, it's so I was actually talking to Mbulelo about this just now. I've got a separate camera here now from, you see that one that I'm moving around, that is not attached to my laptop. It's an older phone.
I need to get like the professional TikTok stuff.
Yeah, well, we had those YouTubers and TikTokers on a while ago, and they were telling us all of this stuff. We even had that one dude on who was giving us very specific recommendations for what microphones and what kind of cameras. And here we are. We thought we were being professional, but clearly not. I went to Cape Town this weekend, so I flew. And as a result of that, I had to wear a mask for like 2 hours on the way down and then 2 hours on the way back. And, I spoke to someone about this on Friday night, and they said to me, no. The key is to, on international flights, because I said, I'm not going to fly internationally until we don't have to wear masks anymore. So he said, oh, well, that means that you're probably going to be stuck here for the next 5 years. He said, the key is to just keep ordering drinks. So I said, but that leads to a whole range of other problems. Right? But obviously on the domestic flights at the moment, they're not serving any drinks. So you can't do that. You just have to keep your mask on and just be a good boy or a good girl.
Are they not even serving water?
You can have water, but you keep ordering a bottle of water every 5 minutes, you'd be peeing more than you'll be drinking. Plus, people pull down their mask, have a little drink, put their mask back up. So what I've discovered is you want those cloth ones. You know which ones I mean? You want those ones that are made. Like I've got one that was sent to me by Proudly South African. So it's like a black thing that's got the strings that go over your ears, but it's one solid piece, but it also hangs forward a little bit. So you don't, so it's a little looser, So you're kind of complying with this play acting that we all have to do by putting this stupid shit on, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. So that's the one that I'm going with when I have to do flights from now on. And it's okay. Hey, I mean, it wasn't so terrible. It was actually very nice to be in Cape Town again. My God, what a beautiful place that is, and how gorgeous it's looking at the moment. Just green and lush and lovely, and the sun is out, and people are looking ready for the summer. It's fantastic. It's just such a magic place.
Do you feel I feel a little bit hurt.
Why?
It actually even caught me a little bit there.
What?
Do you feel? I don't know how to phrase the question. Okay, let me say it this way. I feel a little bit hurt that Cape Town wants to make themselves their own country and exclude us.
Do you?
I do, especially because I lived there for a number of years, and that I love the place, and I've always identified as having it as part of me and who I am and who South Africa is.
You may identify as being Cape Townian. Cape Townians don't identify you as being Cape Townian, no matter how long you've lived there. If you weren't born there, you didn't go to school there, they'll never accept you. You could be there for 20 years, like some of my friends have been, and the Cape Townians are still, oh, no, you're
well,
not
that
ready.
hurts, you know.
I know. So they've always been like that there. And frankly, Cape Town, they are too good for the rest of us. The rest of this country is a total disaster. Like we are like the ginger-haired, Down syndrome, red freckled stepchild of what
money making, economy
well, we make
turning.
Sure, yeah, I know. No, I get that. Don't worry, I'm on your side.
My hurt has turned to anger very quickly.
That was my fault. I take it. But if I were Cape Town, I'd want to be independent.
Who'd do the work so you can keep having wine farms? Because all the guys that own Cape Town they've moved from here because bloody hell, Cape Townians are lazy. Because it's mostly like, let's just say it's mostly now the second generation of trust fund kids, right?
That's what Cape Town is. Thin glass.
All it is now, like I've lived there, so all it is trust fund kids now that are inheriting their parents' money. And most of the people who have the money made it here or in Europe, and they live in Franschhoek, they live in Somerset West. They didn't make it in Cape Town.
That's not the majority of Cape Town, though. You can't say that because
I can say that.
No, I'm sorry. There are whole neighborhoods that have not got one trust fund kid in them, and you know which neighborhoods I'm talking about. And the distinction is
no, sure, but what you want to go live in Bishop Lavis? Is that what you're saying? Like when you talk, we know what you mean when we say Cape Town. Like I'm saying, you know, I know what you're saying. Southern suburbs, Sea Point, it's all trust fund kids. I live there, Gareth. No one's going to tell me anything. I've seen Cape Town now. I know what it is. Who do the work? They're all a bunch of lazy kids who go and sit at coffee shops with man buns.
I listen. You are not speaking any language that I am not already conversant in, and I love giving Cape Townians shit. But I think that what Leigh-Ann has brought up here, it's like, yeah, I know. I mean, we all love going there. It's like a bit of the Mediterranean in South Africa, right? And it doesn't have to cost as much as having to fly to the south of France or Italy or Spain. So we get the best of that without having to leave our own country. But they don't want to be associated with the rest of us. Now, we may be the economic powerhouse of South Africa and Gauteng, and I don't know what the rest of the country contributes, probably fuck all, but I mean, so outside of Joburg and Cape Town, really no. Like if the Northwest all had to just completely fall into a sinkhole, I don't know that so many people in the world would go, oh, we've lost so much. It's such a great place. Mpumalanga is quite pretty in there. You know, there's some interesting stuff going on there. I don't know that
I would not want to lose
Northern Cape, you know?
I wouldn't want to lose my South African identity with game parks either. And, you know, living amongst the lions.
Yeah.
I'm just very upset, and I'm very patriotic. And I believe that where I was born had Table Mountain and lions, and that's what I would like to keep it as.
Well, I mean, listen, the Eastern Cape, I mean, if they separated the Eastern Cape, I don't think we'd all be cheering on the borders. We'd be going, thank you, Jesus, take the whole lot of them.
No, again, you guys are
miss. What are you going to miss from the Eastern Cape if they separated that up? If they cut a huge channel between
the garden
Eastern
route
Cape,
at an elephant park.
Could still visit
hello?
a different country. We'd have a whole new garden route where the Eastern Cape used to be.
You guys are just like turning to pride, protection, and anger to wrap your own hearts in concrete so that you don't feel hurt.
Nonsense. I think that we'd be far better off without some of the provinces. Like I would applaud. I'd go and stand on the edge of where the Eastern Cape used to be and applaud. We'd have a much longer, better coastline, if you ask me. If they just sank into the sea.
What you'd want to do is probably cut it off. What the old government or back in the day would call it there's a divide called Ciskei and Transkei. What you want to do is probably just cut off Ciskei. You don't need that part. Just keep the Transkei.
Yeah, but I'm also, I've never been a fan of PE or that area, so I would get rid of PE. I'd get rid of. Aren't you lucky I'm not God? Because I do such horrible things to Earth. You think nature is cruel now? I mean, like if I were God, it would just be it would be like a country like I don't know, Tajikistan. They'd misbehave, and I'd just make a huge
No, Gareth. Nobody wants to give you more power than a microphone.
Trust me, that's so right. I got into a big argument at the birthday party, which I thought was going well because I like an argument. You know, some people think that you must always be polite and friendly to everyone you meet, but I prefer to have an argument with someone rather than just be polite and friendly with them and then forget their name afterwards. But I met this girl who proudly announced herself as a vegan lesbian, and she was terrific. And she said, "My mother's a huge fan of yours." So I said, "Oh, that's great." Took a picture with her and recorded a little voice, not a voice note, a video for her mom, which was awesome. Then her girlfriend came up to me and said she's also a vegan lesbian. So I said, "Oh, cool, 2 in 1 party. This is like, it's a really rare occasion. Let's celebrate." And then she started talking like ideologically about, the white male cisgender patriarchy. And I was like, I probably had about 2 drinks already, so I wasn't even near.
Who brought that up?
She did. And I wasn't even near.
That's so rude.
I know. I wasn't in any mood to have an argument, but then something, you got like a machine in your brain that it just switches over suddenly. And I was just like, okay, all right, honey, you want to have this? Let's have it. And we started arguing. And to her credit, she held her ground for a long time. And she was fairly unemotional and sarcastic and facetious with me, which I kind of liked. I might even have found it attractive if I'd known that she might have been attracted to me. But at that stage, I realized that wasn't a thing. So I did my absolute best to not ruin or derail the conversation by becoming facetious myself, which I can be. And look, half an hour in, there were a few people like gathered around, and I knew that was a bad news situation because then when you have a crowd, then people start playing up, right, including me.
Roll.
So I was like, I've got to get out of this somehow. But there was just no way out, and she was getting more and more adamant and, talking about how just men suck and shit. And I was saying, look, it got like, so I thought, all right, gloves off, and I started like tucking in. I started saying, oh no, I started pulling heavy shit out of there, and I'm like,
well, this is understandable at this point. This is like poking a pit bull through a fence, and now the fence is open.
Right, and now I didn't hold. I laid in, and I just said, you sound like me to somebody. You sound to me like somebody who's never heard a good argument against your position. You've been coddled by academic institutions. I guessed immediately where she'd learned, what she was doing for a living. I also guessed that there were probably a few experiences in her past that had poisoned her to any kind of objectivity. And I started to move into the realm of maybe being a little less friendly than I'd been at the beginning. In other words, I gave her a little runway to get emotional, and she took all of it, which was my game. And then, ultimately,
okay, what happened?
It didn't go well for her, and and then suddenly I was like, all right, I've had enough of this. I actually don't want to do this anymore. And I tried to just apologize and get on with it, but she was having none of it. And then I just instantly decided it's not worth ever doing this stuff at any stage, even if it's important for me to win arguments, and it is. And even if the argument itself has some value in society. It's just not worth doing this, not at a friend's birthday party that you've flown all the way to Cape Town for, and which everyone's having fun at. And, suddenly I was this mean guy who was like fighting with someone when I didn't start the argument. I didn't take it to the places that it was going to go to until she opened the door. And it was just unnecessary. Like, at some point, I actually just wanted to get out of there. I didn't cause any. I went and I said sorry again, and we made up. I mean, we sort of, I said to her, probably wasn't necessary for us to have descended into all the places that the argument took us, but it left a sour taste in my mouth, and I wasn't really having the best time at the party from that point on. So
was it the platinum package, Gareth, with like mixed race, lesbian, vegan, or was it that whole vibe?
No, she was
just two white chicks.
Two white girls, but lovely people, really not bad people, but just ideological, and I'm not really big on ideology. Like, I don't mind what your gender or your sexual preferences or your when you're an ideologue, it's very difficult to have meaningful conversations because you tend to consider, especially because that particular ideology that I'm talking about now, this very kind of postmodern, it's very prevalent in all our academic institutions. And I would warn parents that there are teachers at your high schools, there are lecturers at your universities that are making your children into religious acolytes of a dogma. It's a dogma. It's a doctrine. It's not you can't question it. Like I was saying, I don't believe in half the stuff she was talking about. And she was like, but how can you deny it? And then she's bringing up like arguments from authority. And it was frustrating to me because no one ever challenges these people. By these people, I mean the ones who believe in this dogma. Like, no one ever says you're wrong, and I'll explain why you're wrong. They always go, oh yeah, no, that's totally true.
Yeah. Also, because they, I don't know how to phrase it. Let me just be blunt. Are vegan lesbians? Immediately, you're on the back foot, and immediately they're right and you're wrong, and you have to respect their decisions, right?
Because of the victim hierarchy that the left is imbued into everything. They think they have the advantage, but I don't respect those things. I don't think that just because
it's like we're allowed to disrespect Karens, but we're not allowed to disrespect vegan lesbians.
And you can always disrespect a white male, even if his arguments are superior to yours.
Exactly.
Because he's a white male. And, that means that he must shut up and listen,
So well done on you.
Don't you mansplain to me kind of thing, which if you do that to me, it's a red rag to a bull. If you're a man, I might just hit you. If you're a woman, I'll never, ever hit you, but I may just make you cry.
But let me ask you this, Gareth. I mean, environments are primed, especially who you are, that it's always going to go that way because all people need is the confirmation bias sort of syndrome. Is as soon as they hear something that sounds like that from you, I mean, why would you even invest? I would say it's on you. Like, how it's going to go.
No, dude, but that's exactly why I felt stupid at the end of it, and I felt like I shouldn't have gone there. Like I learned more than. I think, I definitely won the argument because she had to admit as much, even though she hated to. But that wasn't important, and it didn't make me feel good because the end result was that it spoiled my enjoyment. Instead of being a 10 out of 10 party, which it was for me at the beginning, after that, it went to like a 7.5, which is unnecessary. So it was on me. But, she didn't, to her credit, she didn't bring up like the media background that I have or any of that shit and use it as a way of kind of gaining the high ground. She
and I mean, let's also be clear that your knowledge has flourished like a blooming onion since, and that's a recipe, by the way. It's an actual food.
Okay.
I'm not just looking.
Okay.
But it's flourished since the days of 5FM, and a lot of, many people didn't convert to podcast. They're still listening to their little radios in their car. So they haven't seen the advancements and what you've done and who you're influenced by and exposed to and bring to us, and the types of circles that you move in, which is completely different.
I mean, ultimately, I said to her, and I should have followed my own advice, because this is the most sensible thing that I could think of in the heat of the argument. You feel your heartbeat a little bit faster. It sends a bit of adrenaline to your system, and you're like, okay, good, I'm involved in a conflict here. And it was a conflict in terms of, and I like that. There's a good argument should make you feel that way. But I said to her at some point, I went, look, the result of me being right in this argument is a total annihilation of your worldview, and the consequences of that are very expensive for you. But for me, if I lose this argument, it means absolutely zero. I'm going to carry on exactly the way that I did before.
Michael has a point in the comments as well.
It wasn't going to spoil my day, and it did a little bit just because it made everybody else feel uncomfortable, which I shouldn't have let it do, and that was on me. But it didn't change my life. Like, I don't feel I would have approached the thing in any different way in hindsight. I lost no territory. So as a white cisgender heteropatriarchal male, I'm like, yeah, I definitely, that was her Waterloo. But did it help anything? No.
No, which is why it's so interesting to me that you took that approach, because for me, I've always said since I started here, I'm only interested in talking and interacting with 10% of the world, is that you've gone and invested, because you only have so much capital in time. You've gone and invested that in an absolutely, that cost is completely sunken now. And you probably feel like shit now. Like that, like that's 2 hours you'll never get back. You could have had an awesome time having another tequila.
Well, I did, and I did carry on having fun. And after we'd sorted it out, it was much, much better. But it kind of, you could see it totally derailed her. Not so much her girlfriend. Wow, she was like so cool. She didn't give a shit. She was like, "Come, let's dance, or let's talk, or let's whatever." But
let's go drink a green drink.
Drugs.
Yeah, the vegans. Yeah, let's go.
No, listen. That's how they introduced themselves. I'd never call someone that from the outset.
So anyway,
it was a fun. It was a fun thing, and I thought about, like, am I going to talk about this on the show? Because we often have arguments on the show, but I always like it when people know the rules of engagement. It's like a Geneva Convention of argument, right? At the beginning, this could get really, really messy. We could end up exchanging personal insults. You don't want to, because then it's not an argument anymore. But if it does go there, then let's be adult enough afterwards to be able to shake hands and move on. Because we decided, we both volunteered to be in this discussion. We can't now get upset when it doesn't go our way. And there is no Geneva Convention for arguments, unfortunately, because what happens is ultimately somebody gets a little upset. There's some barbed comment that goes in, and not everyone is as thick-skinned as you might be, and then that upsets them. So,
as soon as someone wants to introduce themselves as a vegan lesbian, and I'm just using that as an example here because that's the flavor of the topic. It makes me think: does it mean that me, as a meat-eating white 40-year-old woman who likes cock, that I'm somehow beneath everyone else? Because those are not popular adjectives, right? Or traits to have.
Yeah. They think so. But you see, it's so central. This is what I was saying about the cost. So it's so central to their identity. In fact, that they present themselves that way. And Mbulelo, you've often said this. You don't care what groups you belong to. You're not interested in how people use collective nouns or group definitions to identify themselves. Because to you, that's a weakness. And I see it the same way. It's probably one of the reasons that we can take the piss out of each other and not have to worry about offending each other. But the sad thing is that when I said to her, the cost of this for you, if you lose your argument, is a complete annihilation of your worldview. That means that if you start the conversation by saying, I am a disabled, colored, gender binary human being, then once we've had the argument and I have proven that none of those things you used to describe yourself are going to be useful in this particular battle, it kind of shakes you a little bit because you've used them to bully other people into accepting your crappy arguments, but it's not going to work with me. And then you're stuck with, and I said to her, like, why do you keep bringing up your sexual preference? It's weird because we're not ever going to have sex. Clearly you're not so why would it be important to me to know what you do with your genitalia? Because that's essentially what you're doing when you say that. Because being a lesbian doesn't help me understand anything about your personality or your ideas, because there's a wide range of lesbians. And
unless you
being a vegan, frankly, being a vegan is
not an achievement.
But it's also not. It's not a philosophical position to occupy, unless we are talking about, for example, the raising of animals for meat and the killing of animals for meat. Then you have some ethical high ground to occupy. But you see, she said these things because this is what I was completely confounded by the fact that our educational institutions are wholly focused on brainwashing young people into believing that this is an acceptable way to argue and that this is the most important thing about you. Oh, you're a vegan lesbian.
Snap.
You win. You win. Like, you win what? What prize? Who wants that prize?
Yeah.
So something I should have asked earlier was, at what stage did she say, I'm a vegan lesbian? Was it, hi, Gareth, nice to meet you. I'm a vegan lesbian.
Yes.
What the hell?
That's how, but she thinks that's him. You see, because, again...
Imagine going, I'm a black guy who likes chicks. So what?
Yeah.
But you see, this is this kind of nonsense that gets positive reinforcement on varsity campuses and in high schools in this country. I'm telling you, it's happening. I mean, if you walk up to someone and say, I'm a heterosexual carnivore, as Annette does, nobody's going to go, oh, that's marvelous.
Yeah, you're so brave. Annette's so brave. Oh my God.
That's so amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Thank you, Annette, for representing, because there's so many people who are afraid to come out as carnivore heterosexuals. So, well done. Good on you. Like,
just stand your ground. Stand your ground, babe, and don't let them move you.
Stunning and brave. That's what they were saying. Stunning and brave. So I'm like, you know what? And I could have had a really interesting conversation with her anyway that didn't have to go this way. But it's really hard because, you see, you can argue with me about politics, and I'm not going to get upset with you if you are on the right or on the left or in the center, because it's not going to ruin anything for me if you aren't of the same political bent as I am. But if you are if you're an ideologue to the extent that all of this stuff is important to your own identity, this is your identity. In other words, the scaffolding on which your personality is built is this stuff. Then any threat from someone on the outside questioning whether that's a good scaffolding ruins it, right? Then you must consider them an enemy. You must
be a vegan lesbian and a really shit, vacuous, horrible person, or you could be a canine heterosexual, whatever it's called. What's the meat eating one? Carnivore, heterosexual, and be a really good person who contributes to society. It's really here nor there.
Yeah,
it is. The ideologues, and I view myself as way left, way left, but the ideologues is the problem is we never get to talking about ideas, right? Like you said, if the most interesting thing about you is your identity politic, is we never get to talk about, hey, what are objectively decent ideas? Because there is no perfect. Throw that out the window. Let's talk about ways for 7 billion people to constantly be rubbing up against each other and stay in the middle. Like, there's no perfect. But the ideologues, we just don't get to talk about that, Well,
anyway, I mean, look, what it did is it took the focus off this friend of mine's birthday for a little bit, and she looked splendid. She's just turned 40 years old, And she decided to have this party to I suppose, marry herself in some way, because she was engaged up to about a year ago. In fact, less than a year ago. And she broke it off. And she's now, this is her saying, I'm happy being single, which I thought is quite brave, stunning and brave, you know.
Yes, yeah. Just,
but it was a fun
inspirational.
party. I mean, listen, people were having a lovely time. There was a really interesting selection of people. Some of them I'd known for a little bit, some of them I'd known for a while. But I was there along with one other friend of hers who'd known her for maybe 20 plus years. And you know, as I said once before, when it comes to an old friend who came out from America, and we had a little reunion for him here at my house, you don't ever make new old friends. And it's really cool to kind of keep up a friendship with someone for as long as she and I have, and as so many other friends of mine have, because I do know people who are incapable of keeping friendships going. And you know, there's something so special about having that kind of history. Like, for example, she had a time capsule that we all put little notes in, and she'll open that up at her 50th, which will be in another 10 years, and then we'll do one for her 60th, and then she'll have this backlog. So when she's an old lady in a nursing home one day, she'll be able to go through these things and like see who was there the whole stretch. I gave her a letter on her 30th birthday 10 years ago, which was quite hilarious, you know. And I looked back at it and I was like, shit, I wasn't such a douchebag at 30. I thought I was. I mean, I might have been, but it was quite a fun letter, and she loved it. She read it out, and you know, she read out one from her mom was there, for example. And yeah, it's nice to see people celebrating those milestones and making a fuss of themselves. You've got to make a fuss of yourself. No one else is going to do it.
Otherwise, there's no point, really.
Yeah. So have a party, everybody. That's what I've learned. You know, and again, the contrast between this and another friend of mine who I met at roughly the same time, 20-something years ago, who died 3 weeks ago. The contrast between the two stories is unbelievable. Just make use of every minute, you know, and be nice to people instead of arguing with them is my lesson out of this weekend.
I love the friendship thing you said there. I really, really love the time spent with people, because like, I know people think I'm joking, but that is the gift. If you're willing to give me your time, number one, I get to see your character, right? And I love seeing people's character over extended periods of time. But that's the gift. When people are willing to give you time and spend time with you, that's the only gift. Time is short, 80 years, and that is an awesome. I'm so stoked for you that you have that with this person. It's an awesome.
Well, I mean, I'm lucky. I've got a couple of friends like that, and one of them in Vancouver was sending me pictures of all of us for the party, of all of us like 20 years ago, and we looked so young. But it was nice to see those things and to see like we don't all look really terrible, you know. And I think because I have seen some people, 20 years can be a big difference, you know. You look at some people and you're like, 20 years, Jesus, what happened to you?
Yeah, and again, it's the whole, you know, like 70 is the new 50, and you know, the way we're moving on that way. And you know, at one stage, an early 30-something-year-old said to me, if this is what, when they looked at me, they said, if this is what 40 looks like, I'm absolutely happy with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like more acceptance, you know.
Well, there are these people who just seem they seem not to age, and that's always amazing too. I think it's very low stress situations, because if you are dealing with a lot of stress, you do pack on the wrinkles, and the age starts to creep up on you. And some people, you look at them and you really can tell they've had a tough time. Life has been hard to them, and they can't help that. So there's nothing they can do. But I think if you can remain stress free, if you don't sweat the small stuff, then I think you probably can age quite gracefully and reasonably well without having to look like, you know, you've walked on a dirt path every day rather than drive on the road.
I hate to sound like a lesbian vegan, but it's also what you exude from inside. You know, it's your shine. It's who you are. It's your confidence.
Yeah. All right. Let's get on with it, because we've got some headlines. Let's see what's going on in the news. We need to know what's happening in the world. And we'll start off in Johannesburg, the new mayor of Johannesburg, who we only met the other day, remember Jolly D. Matongo?
Mm-hmm.
He's dead.
What?
Died in a car. Yeah, he died in a car crash. Aged 46 years old. He'd been campaigning with the president, and his vehicle collided with a van while trying to avoid a pedestrian who'd run onto the road. These fucking pedestrians. No, I'm serious. Like, if you actually work out, now again, people are going to get very upset without any justification here. But
no, the statistics are there. Sorry.
Yeah, you look at the number of people who die on South Africa's roads, and then you extrapolate out the number of people who die as pedestrians on South African roads. In other words, crossing busy highways and things like that. I mean, there are places like you drive through Witbank in Malahleni, right? They've actually had to build 7 or 8 foot fences and put bridges over the highway every, I don't know, 2 kilometers or less, because people cross the highway on foot. Now, you could be a rocket scientist, but when you cross the highway on foot and you can move at a maximum of maybe 12 kilometers an hour, I don't think that that's fast, by the way, for a human being, but it's certainly not slow. Someone coming at you at 120 kilometers an hour in a car makes up a huge amount of distance. So you look at them, you think, I can cross now. You can't. And the reason we have
especially
highways,
navigating multiple lanes, you can't do
correct. We have highways because you want people to be able to travel at 120 kilometers an hour. It's not a farm road. You should not be walking on those roads. Now, don't give me that whole, but shame somebody has to walk here because they don't have a car or because they live on one side of the highway and they work on the other. Well, we've built, I'm telling you, in places like Malahleni, they've built these fences and these bridges, but people still break through the fence and they cross the highway on foot, and then they cause
the bricks.
or they get hit by a car. So go and look at the statistics. I think it was 40 to 50% of the deaths on South African roads because of pedestrians. Those are stupid people who are walking across busy roads without looking, or thinking they can get away with it because they have no perspective.
Yeah.
So come on, come on. So this mayor of Johannesburg is dead because of exactly this situation, trying to avoid a pedestrian who'd run onto the road. The pedestrian and the other vehicle's driver also died, while Mr. Matongo's 2 bodyguards are being treated in hospital for their injuries. He only became mayor on the 10th of August following the death of his predecessor from COVID. So Joburg is stuck again without a mayor, and very sad. We hardly even knew this guy, right? He took over and he was on the news, and now suddenly a month later he's gone.
He didn't even give us a chance to get cross with him.
Exactly. So as a politician, that's a major fail.
Yeah.
The Court, that's the Constitutional Court, has put their foot down, refusing the IEC application to postpone the elections. I don't know why these guys keep on, they're trying to gain the ANC some, this is where that institutions are captured. The Independent Electoral Commission isn't so independent by the looks of things. They're trying to give the ANC more time to win more. I'm telling you, Leigh-Ann, that's what's going on. Why else would the Court be saying in one breath, because they said just last week on the news, I saw the CEO of the IEC saying, no, even though the Court's given us that we will be ready for the 1st of November, we'll be ready to roll out the elections in all parts of South Africa. Now they're making applications to postpone again. Anyway,
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying no command to the IEC to allow this to happen. Flip.
What do you mean? You had 4 years since the last provincial and municipal and local elections to get this ready. What are you doing? You're going to blame COVID for the last 2 years? You haven't had a chance? Get on it.
Have you had the lines for like stop signs and whatever being repainted and where you stay? Because all of that's starting to happen around me now. I don't know if you've noticed it in your areas, but it's really like, no, where our offices are. And I walk to work and I'm one of those pedestrians who will eventually lead to one of your comrades probably crashing into me, and that'll be sad, but we'll cross that bridge or not, or I won't cross that bridge even though it's been built.
You're not crossing highways, you're crossing bridges.
But Gareth, I am the pedestrian community and they are me. I don't have a car, but my thing is right now is, listen, let's stop with the BS. stop now fixing the potholes now, you bloody bastards, because I know what you haven't been doing for 6 months, and you think that's going to swing my vote. What a bunch. You'll see when you come to the office what I mean, Gareth. Just look out for it. The stop sign's looking crisp all of a sudden.
I'm coming in tomorrow, so don't worry. So 4 SpaceX tourists returned to Earth safely on Saturday after spending 3 days in space, successfully concluding the first orbital mission in history with no professional astronauts on board. Isn't that cool? The SpaceX Dragon capsule, whose heat shield allowed it to withstand descent, was slowed by 4 large parachutes before splashing into the Atlantic. It was a heck of a ride for us, said the billionaire Captain Jared Isaacman, who financed the trip with a goal of making great trip. SpaceX boat immediately retrieved the capsule before its hatch was opened, and the space tourists, smiling broadly and waving their arms in the air, exited one by one. That's quite cool. You know, one day when they write the tombstone for those people, there will be 4 civilians who didn't go up there to experiment, didn't go up there to learn, to push the boundaries of science. They just spent a whole lot of money on a really big holiday.
Is it just me, or does the little movie that I create in my head when I see these people emerging from the capsule immediately reverts to like 1950s style, or like the Jetsons? Why is that?
That's
maybe
funny.
You got a pretty comical mind, so I don't know if we should be following your way of thinking.
Okay,
but I'm really
it's just
pissed
me.
now.
Okay.
No, I think it is just you. I'm really pissed now because I remember growing up when I was young, right? Is like, so listen, black parents, no matter how well they do, we're not getting holiday homes and BS like that, So when I was young, I always used to hear like white kids come to me and like in the holidays or whatever, like my buddies lived overseas, but we didn't have like a holiday home. So I'd always hear, oh, we're going to Plet. To where? Oh no, we got a holiday house. So I didn't know that concept. And now, like, I'm getting into the middle class. Oh, where'd you go? Plet. Yeah, where? To my parents' holiday home. Oaks are going to the moon now. Like, oh, well, what did you get up to on the weekend? I went to the moon. How does that? Yeah. I'm a shithead. I'm the dick here. So I hate that.
I think it's all very exciting.
It is awesome.
And I think it's terrific. And the more people want to spend their hard-earned fortunes going to space, the better. I think it's terrific. Go for it, guys. I have no problem.
This is why you have to marry rich. This is why. I'm telling you. This is why. There's no way I'm going to make that much money.
Or make your own money. All right.
Who am I? Elon Musk. Well, come on. Like, I've got an ego, but come on. I'm not that.
I know some very ordinary people who made lots of money. You don't. It takes one deal. It takes one lucky strike. It could happen.
I am very ordinary, so that gives me hope.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gareth.
All right. I know we're all ordinary, so that's our lesson for the morning. Okay, let's get on with it. We've got lots to do today. Where shall we begin? We shall go to Dr. Hanan Bushkin, and this is part of what we do on a Monday. It's called It's Gonna Be Okay. And this is a chance for you to pose your questions, to help solve conflict issues. And this morning, I've got an email. Hey, Dr. Hanan.
Hey, guys.
Nice to see you. I've got an email here from Sue. So Sue has this to say. She says, Dr. Hanan, how does one recover from 30 years of low-level anxiety and treading water? My husband and I have 4 children. I don't think I had the skill set for this huge job. My husband is an incredible father, but he worked long hours at a hospital. Apart from trying to keep them alive with a healthy lifestyle, running to doctors and hospitals for illnesses and emergencies, it's an even bigger job if they're kids that want to excel in sport and academics, not to mention the socializing. Basically, I feel like I've been on duty and semi-alert 24/7, and that includes weekends and holidays. Even though they're now all at varsity or working and are relatively decent and competent people, I still panic every time I get a call from my kids. I love the way this mom, by the way, is totally objective about her children. She says, it has been lots of fun and laughter as well, and I am extremely grateful. But I feel like I've changed from being a very easygoing person to being the most anxious person, and I don't know how to recover. Parents, hey, they've got a tough job.
Unfortunately, there's no manual for that one.
No manual. So where do we start with Sue? Like, how do we make Sue feel that it's okay? Because she seems to have done a better than average job if you consider how many parents let their kids kind of grow up like feral cats.
Right. So there are a couple of points here that I think might be valuable for Sue to take into account. One of the we have a couple of nutrients that we need from our environment. And one of the biggest ones that we need, we don't want, we need it, is a sense of purpose, a career, a path, a thing that you can identify with, that carries you forward, that gives you that structure. So when I turn to someone and go, so tell me about you, when they start the sentence with I am, however way they're going to finish that sentence, that's part of their identity. That's part of who they are. And when we lose that sense of purpose, then we begin to psychologically break down. So, I hear this a lot. 75-year-old male, as strong as an ox, retires. 2 years later, he's dead because he lost his sense of purpose. Had an interesting story with a patient of mine. Her husband was shot in the back 35 years ago, and he became a quadriplegic, and he passed away last year. And she sits here at the practice, and she says to me, Hanan, I'm devastated, but I'm not upset that he's gone. And I said to her, why? She says, well, because he's in a better place. The reason why she is devastated is because she lost her sense of purpose. Her identity changed. So for 35 years, she's been waking up for him, going to this camp for him, doing the shopping for him, looking after him. In a split second, that sense of identity disappears. When you get a mother that's been looking after the kids for 35 years and she feels wonderful, and then the kids leave the house and she feels completely empty because a sense of identity changes. So to Sue, obviously the running around, the fetching and the picking up and the doing everything for the kids and having an identity as a mother was obviously something that she felt very comfortable with. But the moment your environment changes, your identity changes too. And what happens with a lot of people is that they don't adjust to their environment. So they want to keep to an old identity with a new environment. And that's when the anxiety comes in, because you're using old tools or old strategies for managing new environments. So the key is really to not hold on to your identity as it was, but rather redefine and change your identity in line with the environment that you're in at the moment.
All right, but then she talks about this anxiety, which I think, that's another part to this whole discussion, because I love the way you explained the whole identity and purpose thing, because I think that comes up over and over again. It seems to be a fairly axiomatic truth, this idea that if you don't have a purpose, then you start to deteriorate mentally and psychologically and emotionally, frankly. But this idea of anxiety then becoming baked in for Sue, because now, even though her kids are grown up, she feels like every time they call, there might be something going wrong. Like there's this idea that she's got to be on standby for her children for the rest of their lives, which a lot of parents feel, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. In this case, it's making her anxious. Is there something she can do about that?
So first of all, let's just unpack what is emotion. We've discussed this on the show a couple of times, but for those of you who haven't heard it, I think that might be really valuable. Emotions are, everybody goes through the whole wheel of emotions. So if you're the kind of person that says, I never feel sad, I never feel anxious, I never feel insecure, I never feel frustrated, well, there's something wrong with you, frankly. We all need to feel it. We need to feel it. Emotions are our warning signs that whatever we are confronting or whatever's in front of us, we need to deal with in a particular way. So obviously the extreme analogy, if a lion is in the room, I need to feel anxious. If I'm about to be attacked by something, I need to feel a sense of anger because adrenaline needs to shoot through my system so I can survive the attacker. If a kid gets bullied at school, depression sounds pretty bad, but depression is really helpful. And people go, well, how can depression be helpful if a kid gets bullied at school? Well, because then the guard comes up, the kid starts to withdraw, doesn't want to go to school, a tummy bug before school, which is really helpful because it helps the kid deal with the bullying. So emotions are really, really helpful when they're reasonable, because it's an accurate message to, hey, I need to deal with my environment in a different way. But when your emotions are unreasonable, in other words, you feel anger when you shouldn't, depression when you shouldn't, insecure when you shouldn't, anxiety when you shouldn't, that's when it starts breaking you down unnecessarily. So I'm suggesting that her anxiety is 100% reasonable. What she's feeling is 100% reasonable. It's a message to her to start adjusting to a new environment. Now she's saying, well, for X amount of years, for 35 years, she's been looking after the kids and putting them first. Okay, I get it. But now it no longer works for her. So maybe instead of putting the kids first, which was helpful for 35 years, maybe that anxiety is telling her, hold on, maybe you need to change your approach and maybe put yourself first. But I'm going to also predict something else. She doesn't know how to do that. She doesn't know how to do that.
Yeah,
she's been riding a bicycle for 35 years, and now you put her in a car and she's like, what do I do with this thing? What do I do with this thing? Because it doesn't work the same way. I'm paddling, but the car is not moving because, again, she's using old strategies to manage new environments. So I'm suggesting to her, your anxiety is 100% reasonable, and now you need to put yourself first, and you need to experiment with it. Nobody gets into a car for the first time and goes, I know how to do it. I'm not expecting her to know how to put herself first, but I'm expecting her to go and experiment and bungee jump until that feels natural.
Yo, that's hard to do, hey? Especially because, again, going back to your identity thing earlier, like if being a mom is the most important thing about you for so many years, you start to kind of internalize that. It becomes your blueprint for everything that you do. You look at everything from a mom's point of view. I mean, here Michael says, and I'd like your comments on this, Dr. Hanan, people who already have a purpose before they have children make much better parents than those who turn their children into their primary focus. Would you agree with that?
I don't think we can throw a blanket statement. The truth is, I know many parents that make their children their purpose, and they do a damn good job at it. And I know many parents who have full-time jobs whose purpose are the jobs, and they don't do a good job of being parents. And I know it the other way around too. So I think as long as you're not dependent on anything for your own survival, and you kind of spread the risk, I think that's really healthy. So I'll give you an analogy. Imagine you're on a bus and you're holding on to the poles of the bus for stability. We call them psychological anchors. Now, we all need those anchors, and sometimes the bus goes through a rough road. Sometimes the bus goes through a smooth road. And when the bus goes through a rough road, we need to hold on to our anchors. Now, imagine people that don't have anything to hold on to, then they begin to fall apart. That's a metaphor for life. So depression, anxiety, insecurity, guilt, frustration, anger, resentment, burnout, sometimes even suicide. Now, imagine having one pole on the bus to hold on to versus having 8. The person that has the one is holding, or she's holding on to it a dear life, and God forbid anything takes it away from me. And that's when the anxiety comes in, because you protect it at all costs, versus having 8. Now suddenly one disappears. It doesn't matter because I still feel anchored. So you want to spread your anchors with as many things as you can, so you're not dependent on the one for your psychological, emotional survival.
Is there such a thing in your mind as empty nest syndrome? Because this is kind of the overlap that I think we're talking about with Sue's email. You know, for a lot of moms, maybe dads as well, maybe, maybe people even in a household where there've always been children around. Suddenly those kids grow up and move out. And it does sort of feel like the environment's changed quite a lot for them. And sometimes there's this emptiness, there's this hollowness, there's this gap that's been left. It's almost like loss and grief, right?
Definitely, because again, shifting your identity, and that's what loss is. Loss is my identity was X, and in a split second it turns to Y, and I haven't had time to adjust to driving this car. I've been riding a bicycle, now I need to adjust to driving the car. That's what loss is. And an empty nest syndrome is exactly the same thing. My world was X, and now my world is Y, and I don't know how to adjust. But the key for Sue is not to hold on to old skills, but rather marry the new environment and develop new skills. But you've got to understand, and Sue, you have to understand that when you develop new skills, it comes with anxiety. It comes with frustration. It comes with anger. It comes with guilt. It comes with all the emotion. Nobody ever develops a skill and goes, this is as a matter of fact, if it's easy, you're not developing a skill. All you're doing is staying in your comfort zone, being biased or pretending or bullshitting yourself into believing that you're developing a new skill. To develop a new skill comes with all these negative emotions, so-called negative appropriate emotions. But that's what she has to do. She has to dive into a new world, her new identity, and adjust.
Dr. Hanan, would it be appropriate for her children, because you need to reinforce it in her, she needs the feedback, would it be appropriate for her children to go, Mom, it's over now, that part, you've done the 18 years, you've sent us to university, now it's your time? Like, do they need to keep communicating to her that it's your time now? Because sometimes she can only know that if the thing that's making her anxious maybe is the kids going. Do the kids need to communicate to her constantly that it's your time?
So Mbulelo, that's a really great point. Like ideally it will take two to tango, because for an addiction to happen, there has to be an addict and there has to be a drug. So if she wants to work hard at changing her identity and changing her skill set, but her kids are still acting and needing her or feeding her the drug that she's had for so many years, it's going to be very difficult for her to do that. So what I would advise for Sue is to turn to her kids and say, I want to look after myself. Please, I need us to connect the practical disconnect, the emotional disconnect, the intellectual disconnect. So just as a practical example, if she follows her kids on, those GPS apps where you can tell where your kids are at any point. Yeah. So I would advise the kids to turn to her and say, we're going off the app. You no longer need to see me or where I am at what time I'm arriving, because your role in that department needs to change. So it's definitely a give and take by both mom and children, for sure.
Sure. Well, that's all we got time for this morning. Dr. Hanan, thank you very much. We'll catch up with you in a week's time. And don't forget, if you've got some situation in your life that you would like us to help you deal with, you might need a professional like Dr. Hanan's help, and we can do that here. And the reason we want to do it on the show is because then it'll help other people who might not be as brave and might not actually bring their stories to us like you could. And you have nothing to fear. If you want to bring on the person that you're in a conflict with, the situation that you need explained, bring it on. This is one of the few places where you can get the free advice from Dr. Hanan that you might want, and you can get to help others along the way. So you can probably make yourself feel good about that too, because who knows, someone listening may need exactly the answers that you're getting, and we'd love to help you. So contact@cliffcentral.com. Thanks, Dr. Hanan. We'll speak to you later.
See you guys.
Cool. Cheers. Yeah, that's a tough one for Sue. It's hard to kind of let go.
Yeah, it's a real thing. It is a real thing. I went through it with my old lady, so I get it. See,
did you have to tell her
the stages of life?
Oh yeah, no, I think I have to constantly remind her, because my mother doesn't know any other world than being a provider. I could identify so much with what Dr. Hanan was saying. Is my mom's put 18 of us through my father put myself and my sister through school, but she's put 18 people in the family through school and university. The last one's about to graduate. It's all she's ever known.
When you're a mom of teenagers or a dad, you're almost living in emergency mode the whole time. Your mind is set to imagine the worst things. And when you contact that child, even if it's just, hey, how are you? Or how was this today?
Yeah.
It means, are you alive?
Correct.
That's all it means.
That's what it is. Are you alive?
This continuous emergency mode where you think that your teenagers are dead,
But
to live from that to change completely to they've now got their own lives. It's a massive adjustment.
But it's also little things, right? It's like you got to check up on them. Like they're used to lending family $2,000, $3,000 here and there, even though the money's not stopping coming in. Like I had to nobody is allowed to borrow money from my mom anymore. Like that stopped. Right. The whole family now they got angry. You can all piss off. It's her time. Yeah. So it's little things like that.
All right. Well, we'll come back to this. I've also got an email here that we all need to muscle in on. And in fact, if you've got any suggestions, we're going to need some advice from you too. I'll tell you what it is. It's a tricky situation somebody's had, and they need us to help solve it. So that's coming up in the next half hour. Also, collectomania just after that. Stick around. Hold on. Do you suffer from collectivism?
I've got this love affair with French antiques.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
This is a King's African rifles bayonet.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
I've got like 4 or 5 really big trunks in the garage that are full of my Christmas decoration collection.
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
Then you get the limited editions that were like 100 made worldwide.
Possibly a little weird.
So I have a collection of collections.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and The Scoin Shop.
Do you grunt when getting out of the car? Creak when getting out of bed? Do you walk into a room and forget why? Are you having trouble in the sack? Is the hump in a slump? Join me, Chris Haven-Smith, and Dr. Mark on the T-Health Show every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. where we talk to medical and allied professionals about those serious and not so serious medical lifestyle issues. The T-Health Show, sponsored by the T-Clinic. The T-Health Show is available on podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Yo, I put it like wow, this that sound. These oaks don't work hard like me, I hope they know by now.
Central.com on a very lovely Monday morning. I got to say, this is the best time of the year, and we are sliding downhill towards December. It'll be here before you even know it. Like, we're already halfway through September, right? And some. October is just the best month of all. If you had to rank them all, October's right at the top of the pile. November comes a fairly good second. December 3rd, January the 4th, and then from there on, the other months don't really matter. I don't like them or care for them very much. That's how I see it anyway. And You know what happens, right? Is it all happens so quickly from here on in because it's so lovely. Every weekend is golden. There's none of that. Oh God, I wish winter was over stuff that I feel anyway. I know there are those bizarre people who love winter, but they're few and far between, and for good reason. We've got a really interesting thing to talk about here, and I don't know how to approach this other than to just read you the email. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, just stop. We need your help for this. And by the way, coming up, Collectomania, coming up later today, Mbulelo's show, we'll hear about that in a second. But listen to this quickly. So, hey, Gareth, I'm in a tricky situation here. I need your advice. Every afternoon, I take my dogs for a walk. It's just me and the dogs. That's what I'm used to, and that's what I enjoy. Last week, I met a guy who was really interested in my dogs. I let him pet and take photos of the dogs, which I had no problem with. He also asked to walk with me to the park with the dogs, and I said, sure, no problem. The next thing he asked for my cell number, so I asked him why. He told me he would like to walk with me every day in the afternoons after work because he doesn't know anyone else in the area, and he's bored to walk on his own. I gave him my number, and since then, he's been constantly texting me on WhatsApp, asking me about the music and movies I like, as if we're both in high school. He even sends good morning messages asking what I'm up to on that day and how my day was, which was a problem. I hate sending daily reports. So this is a woman, and she's already annoyed by this dude who is obviously trying to make moves. So I know what I kind of know what Mbulelo might say here, but I have no idea what you would say, Leigh-Ann. So you start. Surprise us, because I know what Mbulelo is going to be like clinical about it. So you go ahead. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, if he's hoping for any kind of relationship, that's gone now because she's clearly turned off by this whole scenario. I feel that the empath in me is saying, I feel sorry for him. Maybe he's just looking for some kind of connection. Yeah, you see, I'm so scared of hurting someone's feelings that I would probably do something drastic like move or stop walking my dog or pretend that there's some really bad family emergency and my whole life has changed, and I would drive like 2 suburbs just with my dog to start walking them in a different area. Those are unfortunately the things I would do, which I'd rather make myself uncomfortable than him. But yeah, it's not the right way. The right way is to approach the situation, but it's very difficult.
Which brings us to Mbulelo. I mean, I love that you're so honest about it, because there are people who would do those ridiculous and unnecessary and stupid things just to not have to deal with it and not hurt people's feelings. Mbulelo, obviously, you know what to do here. You know what you would do.
First and foremost, to the lady, is it's not your job to make other people comfortable in the world. It is their job to make themselves comfortable in the world. The world is always uncomfortable. So it is your job now to go and address the situation early as well and say, obviously, we live in the country we do. I hope it's not to that dark place where this guy's a full-on creepo. But it's her job now to go and make it clear to him, I am uncomfortable now. Please, can we stop this? Like I can't help you off this island. Is you need to go and address it in person. Do not do it via text. Awkward situations. You go and you speak to the guy and you say, look,
you take
I
control.
am uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable. I need you to know that. I am uncomfortable now.
It's also scary that my mind also goes to, I'm scared of what he'll do if I do let him down. So it may not only be empathy, it might be self-protection, where I just can't let him down because I'm scared of what he'll do.
You do it in a public place. You do it in a public place, and you make sure that there's someone else around who you know. That's all.
And also, if she is scared, I mean, the right thing to do is, let's take photos, you and me with my dogs. You make sure that a male figure or somebody who you know can protect you in the physical sense knows what the guy looks like, so that when you go and address it, if it goes there, then you've got that out of, this is the man who did this. You know what I mean? Obviously, as a lady, you can't just go and sort it out yourself. You need to have, this is what he looks like. You go and address it, and then you work it from there. I hope it isn't what my mind is fearing.
I'm surprised, because I didn't even think about the danger component. So I feel stupid that I didn't consider that as an obvious thing that could happen in a country where that stuff happens way too much, right? I didn't even think about that. It wasn't in my realm of possibility. So now you've got me feeling dumb, because I was going to say, please, just go to the guy and tell him it's over and it's ridiculous and you've got to find other people to pester. But now that you've brought up the things you have, it's made me think.
Yeah, and it's a real thing. I mean, as a woman, and I feel terrible that, Mbulelo, you say things like, as a woman, you won't be able to protect yourself and you need a man, etc. But unfortunately, it's a reality. And also in a society in which we exist, where if a man is even walking in the same direction as you immediately start worrying about it.
That happens.
You immediately start thinking, I need to get to my car. Where is my phone? Where is my tear gas spray? It's where our minds go all the time. All the time.
That is
get into my car and lock the doors,
But what I would encourage for the lady is, it is not, because all it sounds like is now she's sacrificing her comfort so that he can be comfortable, right? It's not your job to make other people comfortable on this planet.
That's true.
Start there. She must
very true.
Start that in your mind. And bloody hell, what a situation.
The guy has now also made her dogs used to him, so they probably won't protect her against him. Well, I don't think it's been happening for a long time, right? So take another guy with and introduce him as your new boyfriend, says Simon. You're still not, but you're not dealing with the problem, you know.
Yeah.
Have her brother walk the dog with her or a male friend. Yeah, all of this is very good advice. You see that we've got some smart people here suggesting some useful things. Maybe convince a fake boyfriend to start walking with you and your dogs as well. It's Beth's point. Sean says, I confirm by asking them to either confirm or repeat what I just said. Yeah. In other words, make sure he understands. Say, do you know what I'm telling you? So do you understand what I'm saying? Please repeat to me. Like, even if it seems patronizing, sometimes you've got to do that with people. Otherwise, they don't internalize it. Richard said, it's sad that we have to live in a society where fear drives the decision on how to deal with it. Just by the way, the reason I didn't immediately jump to the fear conclusion that Leigh-Ann and Mbulelo did is her email doesn't indicate to me that she's feeling fearful. It's just that she's annoyed and irritated. So I didn't get fear out of this. This guy's maybe not even intimidating in any way. You don't know.
Well, then she should be annoyed with herself. She has nobody. Well, if there is an annoyance, is you let it happen. The world doesn't happen to you. And man, I know I always talk about my old lady. She has a great saying for this one. She always says, the world will only treat you how you let it treat you. People will only treat you how you let them treat you. If she's letting the guy treat her like this, if it's not a fear thing, then that's on you. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think that's a hot take.
Yeah. Just go to here's the best solution. Go to a coffee shop or something nearby. Say him, listen, I'm doing this. This is a very important thing. I need you to understand that I did not go out for a walk with my dogs to meet you. You may very well have thought that was what you were doing for me, but it's not something I'm interested in. Frankly, you've spoilt my walks. I don't know you terribly well. It's making me uncomfortable that I should feel that I can't take my dogs for a walk anymore. And these messages are completely and wholly inappropriate. And you need to find someone else. Get on Tinder. And then you leave him with the bill. You leave him with the bill and you get up and you go.
That's what we want to do. That's what I want to do. And I want,
But seriously, that's, there's you can't let this, as Mbulelo said, that's also good advice. It's like, don't let it linger and carry on, because then maybe he's one of these guys. He could be a completely harmless human, right? He could be a nice, good, solid, decent person who's just lonely, but that's still no excuse for him to impose himself on you.
Yeah. If you're not getting anything out of it, then you have to question. I mean, if you're only getting negative things out of it, like, oh no, now I have to walk my dog and I'm going to see him.
Most of us are not looking to connect with every individual we meet. I don't want to have a deep and meaningful and abiding relationship with some asshole who says hello to me while I'm walking with my dogs. I don't. I'm not going to meet my soulmate that way. And it is childish for people to think that kind of thing. Not every relationship is going to be deep and meaningful. Sometimes you just wave to someone when you're walking your dog and you get on with your dog walk. Plus, she said in another part of the email I left out that she listens to our podcasts on her walk, and now she can't because this asshole's talking to
no,
her.
well then now.
Now you really have to get out.
It's taking food off our table now. No, then I mean,
totally.
For the love of Christ.
I mean, please, woman, we're begging you.
Who have you got on Cliff Central Sport today?
Today, so every Monday we're gonna have a guy who tried to end my life yesterday in the gym. He's a exercise physiologist, and he's a terrible human being. Brad Phillips, former professional footballer. So I want to start. Yeah, he's my new trainer. So I want to start every Monday doing. I know how you love motivational stuff, Gareth. I want to start Mondays, right? So Brad comes in every Monday. We have a bit of a laugh, but we have some serious conversations about wellness, which is at the center of my life. And then one of my heroes will join us in the second hour from 1 till 2. I've always said she's the toughest chick in the world in terms of athletes in the whole world. She went and won something in New Zealand, which no foreigners do in her second year. lady called Robin Owen. She was, you may know as Robin Keim. She dominated the doozy as a teenager. So she's one of my heroes, and she'll be on to talk about her legendary career. That's going to be an awesome thing. I really, really like her.
That's
and
very
admire
good.
her, actually. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Excellent. Busy day. Brad Phillips, Robin Owen. They'll both be on Cliff Central Sport with Mbulelo today. All right. Apparently, according to Leigh-Ann, who's a reliable source, we've fact-checked all of her information. She says infidelity is raging in the 55-plus crowd. So if you have a relative in the 55-plus category, it could be that they're starting to play around. They're starting to have
to get interesting
extra marital relationships of some kind. Go on, tell us where you found
or East Side Plate.
Is this in South Africa? East Side Plate. Is this in South Africa, or is this all over the
global
world?
It's a general thing. So it's very much related to the fact that we need to remember that when you are 50 something, your idea of what 50 something is, sorry, let me rephrase that. We need to, as people who are not 50 something, understand that the people who are 50 something are no longer the same as the 50 somethings from 10 or 20 years ago.
Right.
They are 30 and 40 somethings who've grown to become 50 somethings.
Right. Okay. And I
in
kind of get
the world that we currently live in.
And also being
these
55,
people
being 55 plus now is not, you're not like 1,000 years old and ready to hop into the grave. Like 55 now is probably more middle-aged, and 40 used to be middle-aged 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's biological age. You can reset that.
Right.
These people have come from, now that we've cleared that up, from a generation that lived during sexual revolution.
Yes.
They're not the 55-year-olds that we're thinking of who grew up with the worst thing that they could think of was their daughter falling pregnant at 20. They've come from a generation where having multiple sex partners was normal. Some grew up with parents who were swingers. Even further to that, this generation is very familiar with using drugs to enhance sexual experiences. Maybe back then they smoked grass, took poppers, and had hallucinogens. Now they're having Viagra, and women are having pills for dryness, and there are CBD oils in lubes.
Wow.
These people's mentalities have changed completely.
What's going on here? It's getting hot under the collar.
Well, Cunning Stunt makes a good point here, saying their kids have also grown up, so now they can do whatever they want. That's a good point.
Just earlier, Dr. Hanan was talking about now it's time for me. So these people who have kids leaving home, or they've had kids who've left home for a while and now settled and having children, they're now thinking, do I actually want to be married to this woman for the rest of my life?
And my vagina does not have to stay dry, and my penis does not have to stay soft. There are things I can take for this. It's great.
Exactly.
So dry.
And a lot of times, if you look at the statistics, and this is from the Institute of Family Studies, a lot of these, the immediate thing that you divert to is a man who's now having an affair with a younger woman. But in a lot of cases, it's a woman who's the same age as his wife, where he's just found a new connection. And these men or women are even so open-minded that they're approaching their partners and saying, would it be a bad thing if I saw this other woman maybe on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and you on the others? A lot of people aren't that closed-minded when it comes to sexuality and different ways of living. So this is why these cases are becoming more prominent.
Got you.
That's awesome.
Look, it's interesting. Power to the 55 plus crowd, and if that's what you're into and that's what you're doing, and you're being safe and you're not hurting anyone, that applies. Like, you do your thing, man. Do your thing.
You know who kids get more upset? Because I'm at least hitting that age now where bullies and stuff comes out from home, where what your bullies may have been up to while you were at home or whatever, just people are at 35 finding things out that, oh, geez, like, I didn't know my dad cheated on my mom, like kind of thing. It's incredible to me how upset the kids get so upset as opposed to the parents. Because I actually know two families, which I've been close to, where that's come out. And the kids are more upset than the parents. The parents are just like, oh, okay, well, he's a shithead and we move on and we get divorced.
Yeah. For the
kids get, like, it blows their mind. They family apart. Or they're
for the kids who are now 30 or in their 30s, it's removing every bit of stability they've ever had in their life. There's so much changing in their lives. The only thing they could rely on was mom and dad being the same.
And how many parents have stayed together for the kids, and then they've fallen out of love with each other, so they stayed together with the kids. As soon as the kids move out, then they go and sow their wild oats. Robin says, no morals. They're following the bad habits of the youth.
Well, now they are the youth, Yeah,
correct. That's great if it suits some and it works for them, but now I reserve the right to be traditional. That's from Ruth. Yeah. Look, you always have that right. You decide what's good for you. Anyway, I think that's quite an interesting development, and that's something that was in the news over the past few days. So here's Jean, who says, I know a 59-year-old woman from church who got divorced a few months ago and is living her best life at the moment with her new male friend. Ooh, 59.
I like male friend, because that tells you he's probably from like the Caribbean, and he's got like an 8-pack. Well, why don't you like male friend? We know what's going on. He's definitely Congolese or from the Caribbean. And
who did we agree on? Who has the biggest penis size?
Venda. The Venda boys.
All right. Guys, it's time for something that I look forward to every single week. You know that I'm a collector of all kinds of things, books and coins, and I'm fascinated by other people's collections of all kinds of interesting stuff, from historical memorabilia to toys, to French antique furniture, to Christmas decorations, to teacups. There's just every kind of collector in the world. And my favorite thing about these collectors is they are all completely and utterly obsessed with their collections, but they also have real lives and they have normal things that they do. And if you didn't know about their collections, you'd probably think, they're an okay person. When you find out that they have these collections, you think, what an amazingly interesting individual. Gives you some insight into what they do in their spare time, what they love, what they obsess over. And it is called Collectomania. It's brought to you by the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. And if you are a collector of anything interesting or unusual, then get in touch with us. Send us an email at contact@cliffcentral.com so we can feature you on the show. This week, we have someone who I think Mbulelo is going to appreciate a lot. He's Dr. Barry Shmeizer. He's also a huge Manchester United fan, and he's in the Man U kit. He's in his house with all the Man U stuff. Dr. Barry Shmeizer, how nice to see you. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Gareth. Thank you. I'm very well, especially after a good win yesterday. And thank you for the opportunity of being on your show.
Well, it's a great pleasure. I'm thrilled that you are willing to share your collection with us, because you have, I heard from the producers, you don't think you have such a great collection, but apparently it's enormous. And you even have Man United pajamas. You have all those.
I think that it's become such a sort of, the name has become such a potent force in the world of marketing that there's so much stuff available. And what happens is it makes it easier for people to give you birthday gifts when they know that you have a particular obsession, I guess. So Absolutely. They were a gift. They weren't purchased by me.
So listen, how did this all start? I mean, you obviously were a fan at the beginning, but tell me about what kind of got you into collecting Manchester United memorabilia.
Yeah, so my, I guess, love affair with Man United started when I was probably about 6 years old and living in Mbulelo at the time. Mm-hmm. I had cousins who followed football. They were older than me, And I guess you kind of follow suit and you attach your name to a team. It gives you a sense of identification. And I remember cutting out a card off the back of a cereal box. It was probably in about 1965, and it was of the great Dennis Law. So that was my first introduction to Man United. And a couple of years later, I had the opportunity of watching them live. My late dad needed to travel to the UK to get a certificate from the pharmacy board. And we watched United play live, and the great George Best was playing for them. And I guess that's when the love affair started, because he remains the greatest player that I've ever seen and probably ever will see.
That's incredible, Barry. I've just got some comments coming in already here, and one of them made me think, Cristiano Ronaldo just joined you guys, and there was a massive sellout of every shirt that was available. I mean, I think they generated close to £1 billion in revenue on that move alone.
Yeah.
It's just the most incredible thing. So you're not alone. I mean, here's another point. Man U, according to Corona's Boring, says Manchester United is the most supported team in the world, with 10% of the planet who support them. They're also the most hated team, with the other 90% hating them.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I was going to ask. Is why are they so hated? What are you guys doing that's making us hate you or the rest of the world?
Simple. Human nature is jealousy. We're the greatest club on the planet. And, they say, I think apropos your previous discussion, you can change your life partner, but you can't change your football team. So there are millions of poor kids who have grown up bludgeoned into supporting the teams that their dads support, only to realize that they've made a bad choice. So, it's United is the team. Always the saying goes, hated, adored, but never ignored.
Right. Okay, so is that the new Ronaldo shirt you've got next to you there?
No, in fact, to be honest, that comes out my archive. That is the Ronaldo shirt of 2006.
Oh. Yeah.
I'll try and tip down. So that's the shirt that United wore in the Champions League that season.
Amazing.
So it comes from old stock. But, in terms of marketing, and it applies to most clubs, they bring out 3 shirts every season. Now, if you go back to the 1960s, Man United wore the same shirt throughout the 1960s. It never changed. In fact, it was a red shirt, not dissimilar to what I'm wearing now, but with none of the stripes and without a badge and without a sponsor's name. Just a red shirt with a white collar and cuffs. So it's all about marketing. And, these teams have a massive, massive staff of marketers. And that's where the revenue comes from, so that players can be purchased and paid astronomical salaries.
So, Doc, first of all, thank you for dressing up this morning for us, because I know no one wants to get dressed first thing in the morning. You've probably got an important and busy day ahead of you. But I want to show people a picture of your office here, just so that they can see. So this is in your practice, and the walls are covered with memorabilia. So tell us what's going on in this picture. There's a whole lot. There's a carpet under you with Manchester United on it.
Yeah.
So there are these things on the walls. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah. So that picture was slightly staged. It was actually taken by some cameramen from the BBC who were doing a feature on supporters all over the world. So that particular room that I'm sitting in, they put my examination couch in that room, but it actually lives in a different room with an equal number of photographs in it. And these are just photos of games that I've been to and signed items that I've acquired over the years. And for me, they make prettier viewing than sort of the conventional medical rooms. Who wants to kind of see pictures of stomachs and skeletons all over the place? What I find is that many patients will only admit after they've kind of completed their investigations or treatment that they're affiliated with other teams, too scared to mention that they hate United. But it creates a good talking point, and I'm surrounded by lots of good memories there.
That's amazing. I mean, it must make you happy too, to go to work every day and to be in an environment where all that stuff can even if you've got a terrible patient, or you've had a rough day, or you're not necessarily feeling that great yourself, you look around there and you can feel a sense of achievement. These are matches that you've been to. It's your favorite sport. It's your favorite team. It's your favorite hobby. It's just a great feeling.
Yeah.
What's is this the other room? Is this just the passage you're in here?
It's a passageway. There are about 8 rooms that are decked out. I can tell you, I've never counted them, but the maintenance manager of the clinic in which I work tells me that I have 325 framed items on the walls. Wow. And the only reason he knows that is a couple of years ago, they were building above the section of the building in which I'm housed. And we were told to take the pictures down because they were doing some work on the ceiling above us. So fortunately, I was going away at the time, but I suggested to him that he take each one down and put a numbered sticker on it with a corresponding number on the wall behind it, so that rehanging them wouldn't be much of a jigsaw puzzle. So I'm told that they're 325.
Unbelievable. Do you know what the value of all of these must be? Because it's probably quite high.
I don't know how you attach a value to these things. You know, memorabilia has become a massive market. I guess it's what people are prepared to pay. One of the problems is there are a fortune of forgeries around. I'm pleased to say that almost every single item that I have there was signed in front of my eyes. So I don't believe there are any forgeries there, coupled with the fact that I'm not looking to sell any of them. Sure. But this is, as I say, it's a very big market for memorabilia. Probably the most valuable item that I have, I have in a frame a group of autographs that were signed by the players that tragically lost their lives in the 1958 Munich air crash. And this was given to me by a lady whose husband was an integral part of our supporters club and unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. That's probably the most valuable piece of memorabilia I have. I think things take on value, of course, when the signatories have passed on. But I've never looked to have it valued, and I certainly wouldn't look to make any sort of money out of selling any of these things. They're too dear to me.
So, Doc, I mean, first of all, Carl DeSantos, who's listening to us now, says this is the best collectomania yet. And he says, Dr. Barry, how was that Lingard goal yesterday? He's definitely a fan.
Yeah, so the Lingard goal yesterday was absolutely sublime. But probably those that follow me on social media will know that he's not my favorite son in the Man United team because he doesn't do this often enough. But I'm very, very pleased to eat a small slice of humble pie after yesterday because he scored a worldie yesterday.
Well, Carl also says, I'm going to feign illness just so I can visit the Doc United, massive United.
Don't need to feign illness. Just come and say, let's talk football. It's much more fun than talking medicine.
That's amazing. All right, so Doc, a couple of things here. You've met some of these players. I just want to show some pictures here quickly. Here's you with David Beckham. That's pretty amazing. That's so cool. When was this?
Yeah. So those are over various years. The top panel was in his last season before he went on to play for Real Madrid. The bottom left one and the top one is taken at the current training ground. The one on the bottom left was taken in 1999. Of course, the year of United winning the treble. And at that stage, he wasn't exactly a fashion icon. The other two were taken after games in the early 2000s. But what I want to mention is that, first, he's no friend of mine. I've encountered him in these sort of meetings at the training ground, etc. But a nicer chap you won't come across in terms of treating the fans. And I've seen him besieged by autograph hunters, and he doesn't move off until he has signed every single autograph and taken every single photograph. Wow. So I must have much respect for him. And the other thing that goes under the radar is the guy was a sublime player.
Yeah, absolutely. We've sort of started to think of him as a pop culture figure rather than a good footballer.
Very much so. Probably risen above the game in many respects.
Now here's you with Cristiano Ronaldo in 4 separate pictures. Tell us what's going on there. It's amazing.
What a specimen.
You're talking about me, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Of course you, Doc.
Excellent. So the picture at the top was taken in 2007, the day before the 2007 FA Cup final. That was the team's hotel in Windsor. The other 3 pictures are taken at various times at the training ground in Carrington, which is kind of just on the outskirts of Manchester. Now, that top picture, I'm very proud to say that Carlos Queiroz, who of course is well known in football circles in South Africa, is a good friend of mine. And it was really through Carlos that I was able to have access, for example, the day before a cup final at the night.
Yeah. Doc?
Oh, no.
I think we've lost his
It's
connection.
okay. You can leave the picture up. It's fine like it is.
You like the picture, huh, Leigh-Ann? That's let me just see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remove him and see if we can get him back on.
Great sense of humor, that guy.
What a terrific guy. Okay, so first of all, I love the fact that, because this also legitimizes all those of us who are collectors, right? Because this is a doctor. He's a serious person who does a serious job, but he's a massive, massive fan. And his office looks amazing. If I had to walk in there, I think I would immediately feel like this is the best doctor I'd ever met, even if I hadn't met him yet. Huh?
It kind of makes you think, what could a doctor be a collectomania about? What could he collect that would completely turn you off and make you walk out the door?
Well, maybe body parts of dead patients would be a problem.
No, I mean, that would still be fine with me as a doctor. I'd be like, cool.
I don't know. I love this. And I mean, to have met those, so obviously, Ronaldo and Beckham, probably like in terms of fame, you don't get better than that, right?
Yeah.
And he's just
Well, there's Messi. There's Messi.
Just a couple of times. Here he is. He's back. Hey, Doc. Sorry, we lost.
So sorry about that.
No worries. We got you back.
Sorry.
No problem. So it's just so cool. You were talking us through the Cristiano Ronaldo and David Beckham pictures. Those are just unbelievable. Are there any players that you really want to meet that you haven't yet met? And is there anything that you'd love to do that you haven't yet experienced in terms of Man U?
Yeah, I think what has happened now is that access to the current squad has become virtually impossible due to security reasons. You're really not allowed near them. So I have to say that my take on it is that, follow the club. Doesn't have to be an interaction with the player.
Yeah.
As a result, I've befriended like-minded people from all over the world. So often we'll encounter one another in Manchester. Fantastic to get together with supporters from all over. And, when you're watching a game, the bloke sitting next to you could be a mass murderer, but you become brothers for the 90 minutes of the game. And that's, where we come from. It's a sense of identity. What would I like to see? I'd like to witness United winning a few more trophies, because the trophy cabinet has been a little bit bare over the last couple of seasons. But nevertheless, you follow the team. You follow the club.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Doc, you've witnessed sort of the evolution of football from, association football back as it was in the 60s to definitely the biggest TV show in the world. Do you feel more or less connected to Manchester United now than ever? Or is it diluting your support of number one football and Man United? Or do you just feel as in love with United as the very first day you got to see the great George Best?
Yeah, I think the love grows, but the mind boggles with respect to social media, because with the advent of social media, armchair experts like myself are given a voice. So you can vent your displeasure on social media if there's a player who's made a bad pass or you think he's not good enough. When I was in high school, Man United got relegated. I shudder to think what social media, had they been around at that time, would have been awash with. But I think it gives one more of a communication with the club, a little bit more as to what's going on. But the frustrating part of social media is the transfer market. on average, every transfer window, United are linked with about 150 players that allegedly are house hunting in Manchester and looking for schools for their kids and assigning the next day. So there's so much fake news out there, but it certainly hasn't diluted my love for the club, not at all.
It's so cool that you've been able to keep this up and that you've also had the opportunity to have these unique experiences. Are there any clubs that you consider your absolute arch rivals and that you can't stand? And do you have any friends who support those clubs?
I'm ashamed to say that I do have friends that support those clubs. A couple of them, in fact, discussing football is no-go because we probably come to blows. And of course, United's arch nemesis is Liverpool.
Yes.
We always like to get one over Liverpool. The same applies. And it's an interesting one because if one goes back to the 1950s and 1960s, the players from those respective clubs, they often used to be great mates. And I think there's been a big divide even amongst the players. But my friends who go to every game, who live in the UK, tell me that when they go to Anfield, they actually fear for their lives on those days.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's a very strong rivalry with Liverpool. But the rivalry also changes in terms of, who's winning. In the 90s, Arsenal became great rivals because under Wenger, they had a great team and they were winning leagues. Of course, when Mourinho came to Chelsea were the team to beat.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have our noisy neighbours, Man City, who, they can't even half fill their stadium at the moment. So, even though they win a lot of things, there's not that same, I hesitate to use the word hatred, but I think there is hatred between Man United and Liverpool supporters. And certainly, if you were somebody who had suicidal thoughts, you'd rock up at Anfield in front of the Kop with a Man United shirt. I don't think you'd get very far.
So Zach says, and I agree with Zach, I mean, just seeing those pictures earlier, it's breathtaking. Your collection looks like seeing the Sistine Chapel of Manchester United. I'm not into soccer, says Zach, but anything historical as this collection always gets my attention. Have you ever had a patient come in who was a Liverpool supporter and they couldn't deal with it? They like, Doc, I'd rather be sick. I'm going to be even more sick. I can't handle Man U.
Not quite, but just remember, if you're coming to a bloke who potentially is going to be doing a colonoscopy on you, you don't want to irritate him. It's one of the rules of life, I guess. But Gareth, you mentioned you're a collector of books.
Yeah,
I have a massive Man United book collection because we rely on books from the historical perspective, and there've been some very good books. The disappointing thing, of course, is the so-called players' autobiographies, which are always ghost-written, and they don't make for really great reading. But there's some very, very good Man United historians out there. They make for good reading. Another source of good reading is the match program. I have virtually every home game since 1958. So these are other things that form part of the collection.
Sure.
And they're enjoyable. You get a lot of good information out of those things. But in terms of collections, there's some guys overseas who, have collections valued at millions of pounds. But the problem is that there are things put on eBay and various places that are forgeries. That's what one has to be very, very careful of.
Yeah, lots of people, clearly some of these people know who you are. Robin says, bless this lovely man. And it's not because awesome. It's not because she's a Man U supporter. She obviously, she's in the medical field. So she likes it. Gen X saying, luckily Dr. Barry looks good in red. Indeed.
She should see me in blue.
Here's an interesting question. Do you have a Fred shirt?
Haven't got one, have no intention of getting one, and will be really pleased when one day he's moved out of the club. We want all our players to do well, but Fred is not good enough to be wearing the Man United shirt. There's a controversial comment.
Oh, that's amazing. All right. Not even Fred has a Fred shirt, says Lungile. That's great. I love this. So we're getting deep into the weeds here with this Man U stuff. By the way, is there a match that you've been to that was your absolute all-time favorite? I mean, one that gives you bragging rights with other Man U fans.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a match that I was meant to be at that I didn't get to. That is a source to this day of great disappointment to me. And
don't say it.
1999. Sorry.
I don't say it. I thought you were going to say something else there, Doc, and it was going to break my heart. But I'm glad it's not the one I was thinking about.
No, which were you thinking of?
I thought Luzhniki, the Champions League.
No, the 1999 Champions League final, which goes down as the most historic night in the club's history. I had a ticket for that game. Unfortunately, we had a family function in the United States at the same time. And I have to say, unfortunately, that one won out. So that is a game I regret having been at. But I can tell you that...
I hope that family member was extremely grateful because...
Gareth, to be honest, probably to this day ungrateful, but subject of another story. Hopefully my good wife is not listening to this. But to watch United, no matter who they're playing, it's always thrilling, absolutely thrilling to be there, to mingle with the crowd, to be in the pubs before the game, and to behave like an absolute banshee, singing songs, swearing like an absolute trooper. It's always awesome. And funny enough, one of the most memorable games that I was at was a game that United lost at home to Real Madrid, where Ronaldo actually scored the winning goal for Real Madrid.
Scored a hat-trick?
No, that was the Brazilian Ronaldo who scored a hat-trick at United, Cristiano Ronaldo. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this was in Fergie's last season at United. The first leg had been drawn away in Madrid, and United were leading 1-0 when Nani got sent off in that game, and the rest history. Real Madrid went on to win the game. But before the game started, it was announced that Ryan Giggs was in the team lineup, and the stadium went ballistic because he was breaking one of the European records. But when they announced the Real Madrid lineup and they announced Ronaldo's name, I can tell you the roof nearly came off the stadium. The fans went utterly ballistic. And this is what United fans do. If a player has played for United and he's made a good impression, he will be loved, even if he moves on to another club. You know, it's kind of fashionable to boo the guy that used to play for you and now is wearing colours of another team. But Ronaldo coming back in that Real Madrid shirt, I will never forget. And I've been to 7 FA Cup finals. My record is not good. We've lost 4 of them. But they're great occasions. And one looks at these as an occasion rather than the 90 minutes that you're watching because it goes so quickly. But there's always a narrative at a game. There's always a scenario. There's always somebody's going to come up against somebody. There's going to be a clash. There's going to be a yellow card. There's going to be, all sorts of stuff. So there's lots to talk about at every game. It's just awesome to be there.
I'm just loving hearing you talk about these things. You are so passionate about this stuff. Doc, do you have a wife who understands? I mean, a lot of she has to, right? She has no option.
Well, my wife, in fact, over the years has become a staunch United fan, and I have to say she's got a good knowledge of the game.
All right.
In fact, in that 99 Champions League final, which we were relegated to watching on ESPN in the USA, she'd asked me on the day if I thought that United were going to win. And I said, the script is written, we're going to win the treble. And going into just virtually the last minute of the game, we were losing. And she said to me, I guess your script writers got it wrong. And I have to say, my wife is much stronger than I am. I'd never think of anything violent. But in that one moment, I have to say, it crossed my mind that, what do I do? But fortunately, Teddy Sheringham and Ollie Solskjaer came to my rescue, and they scored what turned out to be the equalising and winning goals. So she was let off the hook then. But she's a good fan, I have to say. She's been with me to some games. We've painted our faces at games. Just a little anecdote. The first game that she ever came to was Man United at home to Fenerbahce of Turkey in 1995 in the Champions League. To date, United had never lost a home game in European competition, and we lost that night. So she got a 10-year ban from coming back to the stadium.
Does she ban you from putting up memorabilia anywhere outside of your man cave or your office?
No.
You can. So is the rest of the house also full of this stuff?
No, I've got a couple of. I've got a study that's bedecked with this stuff. I've got this room that's bedecked, and I have to say, the room in which I'm sitting used to be one of my kids' rooms, who subsequently moved out, and we had a leaking roof in this room. And she, in fact, when it got to being repaired, said to me, "Why don't you turn it into a kind of man cave?" So she has to take full blame for that.
Yeah, but she only did that to get you to repair the roof. Now we know.
Yeah, possibly.
Doc, it's so good to talk to you. You're an absolute inspiration. I love your collection. I'm so glad that you agreed to share it with us, because it's really
such a pleasure.
So great. Love it.
Such a pleasure.
All right. And Mbulelo, have you ever met a bigger Man U fan?
Jeez, I mean, that's insane. That's sickeningly insane. I mean, as a Man United hater myself, but it is something beautiful to behold when somebody's that committed.
Yeah. I have to say that, you follow football, so to turn around, I think that we have respect for whoever the opposition is. We have respect for the other great clubs. To adopt an attitude. I support, you often meet people, who do you support? Anyone playing Man United or whatever. I have a stock answer to that. I say I love talking about football to people who know about the game, so let's talk about the weather.
Dr. Barry Shmeizer, what a pleasure to have you on the show this morning, and thank you for your collection and the incredible work that you do in keeping Man United fans in South Africa jealous a little bit, because I'm sure none of them can really compete with a collection like this, but also inspiring them, because this kind of thing is just obsessive, and I love it. I think it's terrific.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to chat to you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the best, right?
That is
awesome. Lifelong fan. I love that.
And he's funny, and he's smart, and he's got an answer to all of the usual jibes that people will give him. And I just love that collection. Those pictures are mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Imagine you go to your doctor.
Special.
You go and check in on your doctor, and you need to go and have something sorted out, and you look at that. I mean, I'd spend an extra hour. I'd arrive an hour early just to look at all the stuff on the walls. Unbelievable. Magic.
That is the magic one. Football that's the connector. Even if I hate Man United, you get there, the guy's a United fan. We're off. I mean, I was in Sweden a couple of years ago, and I was wearing my Bayern Munich shirt, just like in the middle of nowhere, just walking to get to whatever, Guy comes up to me, and it's got so a guy called Thomas Müller on the back. This guy from Uruguay comes up to me. We start talking about Bayern Munich in the middle of Sweden. Here I am walking on my own, minding my business, and it's just like we're off, and having a laugh, and he loves Müller as well. Football's special like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gen X says, I'm not a soccer fan, but it seems like I've missed out on great fun listening to Dr. Barry. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he'd get anyone excited about sport. But what you're saying, Mbulelo, is so true. Like, just by being fans of a team, it can bring people together. I mean, you haven't forgotten already that the doc said you could be sitting next to a mass murderer at the stadium. But for that 90 minutes, you're brothers. Incredible. Absolutely.
So true.
All right. Well, that's another excellent episode of Collectomania, brought to you by the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. And by the way, if you haven't already thought about maybe diversifying your little portfolio and getting yourself some gold or some platinum or some silver, it may be time to do that. And they have some seriously collectible stuff at the Scoin Shop and through the Gold Coin Exchange. So get hold of them, You can find all the details on cliffcentral.com on the page for Collectomania, and share the story and share the podcast with all of your friends, because if there's someone else that we get to meet, like the incredible Dr. Barry Shmeizer, then we'd love to have them on the show. So let us know if you've got anyone in your family, your friendship group, your extended community who maybe also collect something really interesting. We want to hear about it. It's always fascinating. I love it. All right, that's all we got time for today, and I hope you'll have a very productive and terrific Monday. If you don't, that's on you, because we can only wish the
or your fault, man.
It's your fault. Yeah, I'm telling you. And thank you very much for joining us this morning. We will see you tomorrow, bright and early at 6 a.m. Have a great Monday. Cheers.